Asner, clearly relative. Anyway, getting a doctorate in math in England, and it was a whole thing getting him home because of virus anyway. So the advantage to math is he still can work on his thesis from home.
Oh, sure.
Anyway.
As long as he's got his laptop, he's home free.
Oh, yeah. And he's not applied, he does pure stuff, and it's fine with his advice, anyway. So obviously it's an interruption, but he's in better shape.
I am Netta, the Shlichat B'nai Israel. Thank you all for joining. As you can see, my whole family is basically here. My parents are Lance Asner and my mom Esti, who is on the side of the screen. Nama Asner's in Chicago, and Avia, who's joining me today because we were both in the Spokespersons Unit. So the way we're gonna do this is that I'll explain briefly about the Spokespersons Unit first. Also, how I got in and what it's made of. The different departments, and then I'm going to share, both Avia and I were in different departments, so I'm going to share just 2 examples of things that I did in my service, and Avia will share 2 things as well, and then we'll be happy to take questions. If you have any questions during about things that we did, feel free to write in the chat, and I will answer questions at the end. But that's basically how the format is going to be for today. Great. So, Avia, do you want to? So I'll just say that I drafted in the IDF Spokespersons Unit in 2014. I finished in 2016. So I was in the Army. I just drafted a little bit before Operation Protective Edge. And Avia, do you want to say what years you were serving?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I served from April 2016 to April 2018.
Great.
Yeah.
So now I'll explain briefly about the Spokespersons Unit generally, and how we got in, or at least how I got in, because I know it's changed a little bit since then, and also just the way the Spokespersons Unit is actually built. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I drafted the Spokesperson in 2014. The way that I got in, before the Spokespersons Unit is the unit that connects basically between the IDF to the public generally. So that means any journalists, any media sources, and the public generally, they would go through the Spokespersons Unit to get any access from the Army, because it's sometimes you have to go through approvals of intelligence. You have to there are security issues there's basically security issues, so it has to go through a special approval, and the IDF Spokespersons Unit is the one in charge of that. So for example, if any also delegations, for example, any FIDF delegation that is brought to the United States is done through a unit in the Spokespersons Unit. So just to explain the amount of work that they do is basically any interaction, any information you see about the IDF that comes to you is generally through the IDF Spokespersons Unit. It's done in some cooperation. So the way that I got into the Spokespersons Unit was I had to go through a couple of levels in order to actually get in. I went to a General Day in Tel Aviv University in the beginning that was for also the Army paper that has since then closed, if I'm not mistaken, and the Machaneh, and the Army radio, Galatz. It was a test that we took all together, a general knowledge test with about a good 1,000 people there, more or less. From that, only a few hundred people get divided into the specifics of the Spokespersons Unit, the Army radio, or the military paper, which again is since closed. And when I continued into the stages to go into the Spokespersons Unit, I had 2 interviews. And again, the process of elimination is pretty large. That a lot of people try to get in and they're not able to. It's considered a prestigious unit, and so prestigious in the fact that people think that you can only get in if you have connections or by nepotism. I'll just say I do not know anyone in the Spokespersons Unit before I drafted. I was told by many friends at the time in high school to drop out and just go to intelligence because there I will definitely have a good job, whereas I'm not sure if I'm actually going to get into the spokesperson's unit. So both Avia and I got in. That's not saying anything, not bragging about ourselves, but just saying that that is like the stigma that's around the spokesperson's unit generally, just because of the fact that people, for a lot of people, this is a huge jump for their career in journalism or into PR world afterwards. It's considered a very professional job because we work more in an office type setting rather than actual Army experience. Yes, we both went through basic training and had a weapon and learned how to shoot it, but day-to-day work is very much in an office. So it's a very different experience than someone who's in combat, for example. And so the IDF, in the IDF spokespersons unit, it's divided into 5 branches from what I got the information, more updated information from Avia. So there's the foreign press branch. So meaning then that's divided into specific little desks, thank you, little desks of different areas. So for example, there's a North American desk, there's the Latin America and Asia desk. I don't know why they're connected, but they've been connected with each other. And the Arabic desk, etc. And they work on, and that's where I was in the North American desk, connecting between Canadian American reporters to the IDF. Most of them were based in Israel. Although we did get some requests, especially during protective ed, and also especially a year after protective ed, for people who are doing a year after the war. We got a lot of requests from people from abroad. There's another branch of the Israeli media, and there the division of desks is divided according to type of media. So they do a lot more work. They do a lot of more bulk of the work, and it's divided by television, radio, and internet. Army reporters have a special unit of their own. That's considered one of the elite desks in the spokespersons unit, just because it's the Army reporters who get the most lucrative information about what's going on in the Army. So that's the branch of the Israeli media. And then there's another branch of public relations, basically. So included in that is Jewish organization and foreign government. So any trip that's done with AIPAC, any SIDF delegation, any Jewish organization that's involved with the IDF in any way, or when, for example, One Republic visited to Israel and saw the Iron Dome, it happens through the public relations branch. People there who either take the requests, connect them to people in the Army, or go with them to these different places, because they have to have someone from the IDF spokespersons unit at all times, when they're visiting Army bases. The fourth branch is strategy and operations. So they're the ones who, for example, if there is any operational event happening, there is a special, I don't know, in Hebrew called war room, that they get the updated information, they immediately bring out an announcement to reporters to share the operational information. And in addition, the same branch also thinks of strategy of what we need to be producing right now. What are the ideas and information that needs to be shared? So the strategy and operations is another branch. And again, that's how the public gets the information, is through the spokespersons unit. And the last branch, is which also Avia was in this branch, is the digital branch. It's recently become a branch on its own. It used to be part of Israeli media and foreign media, but just because of the importance and centrality of social media today, it's become a branch of its own. And Avia was in Israeli digital media, but she'll be talking about the international social media as well, which obviously has a lot more exposure to the different languages, the IDF pages in different languages. So that's generally how the IDF spokespersons unit is built. And again, I was in foreign press, and Avia was in the digital branch on the Israeli social media. So I'll ask to see if there's is there any questions about the IDF spokespersons unit generally? If so, feel free to write, and or ask right now. You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask. Okay.
Yeah. I wondered if the fact that you're a native speaker of English helped you get a spot? I mean, do they, if you're Latin America, but you made Aliyah from South America or wherever, does that help you get into the different parts based on your linguistic proficiency?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So for me, I'll just say that we only get our specific positions of where we're going to be after the course itself. So we do a 2-month course after basic training. That's, again, a professional training to be in the spokespersons unit. And then only afterwards we get our position. So I was interviewed by someone from the foreign press branch who checked my English, and also it depends on if they actually need people. So it's by demand. If people are leaving the army at that point, and then they need other people. So I was, I guess, lucky enough that they needed more people in the North American desk because other people were finishing their military service. So that's another consideration as well about how you get your position. But definitely the fact that I was native English speaker and also knew Hebrew well. A lot of people who were in the foreign press branch were lone soldiers who didn't have Hebrew in a high level, and it really affected our work professionally, because the fact that they couldn't communicate with other people in Hebrew well in a professional way was difficult sometimes to get actual good briefings or good results of bringing quality things to international reporters. I see that there's another question. Okay, Aviad, maybe do you want to answer the question?
Yeah.
How competitive is it to get into the spokespersons unit? Does it put you on a preferred career path after the IDF?
I would say it's pretty competitive just because of the difficulty of the tests. And does it put you on a preferred career path after the IDF? Yes, depending, like Netta, for example, could have pursued work in any spokesperson unit in civilian positions, like in different businesses. Me being in the digital department, I work in the same type of work that I worked at in the Army. And usually people our age who went to it on a combat path or just like regular Army positions, they get out of the Army and they usually go on like a trip and then they'll start college. Whereas when I got out of the Army, I started interviewing for jobs, and it was a completely different reality because I already had experience, like 2 years of work experience that other soldiers don't necessarily have.
Yeah, I'll just say that I had relations with reporters who were working in Israel, and I was offered jobs. So that's, and then because people know that you're leaving the Army, it's an opportunity for you to really start a career path, and that's what you're interested in. So I'll just say that my first job was with the husband of a reporter who works with the Jewish Boston Federation. So that helped me from that point of view. But I just wanted a different career path and not to be in media. So it definitely creates connections that other people don't necessarily have when they finish their military service. Okay, so we're now going to go into our specific branches and examples of things that we've done. I feel like I've spoken a lot. Aviad, do you want to?
You want me to do first?
I do want you to do first, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to need to share the screen.
Good.
Do you have any?
Okay.
Do you have any sound?
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I created a little something
Good.
15 minutes ago. No. Okay. Okay, so I just started. I'm going to start with the structure. I'm going to do very quickly. If anyone has questions.
Is that too low?
What?
Yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah, I muted someone who. Okay.
Okay, so let's go through this quickly. So I was in the digital department. The digital department, this is basically the structure. There's a visual team of photographers They do stills, video editors, After Effects editors, graphic designers. In addition to that, there's the IDF website. That in it, those are all the military correspondents. And you have to understand that all these people in these positions are 18-year-olds, like between 18 to 20 to 22. So they're military correspondents, editors, and IDF social media. That was my position. I was a social media manager, basically creating content for the various social media platforms. If any of you have used any social media, Facebook, Instagram, if you've seen anything related to the IDF from the official IDF page, that is from the IDF social media digital department. And it's basically soldiers like me who are producing content with the help of the visual team. It's basically one big production company, just in the format inside the IDF spokesperson. There's people who are producers, who are write scripts for certain videos. Usually the photographers are people who have sometimes done prior to their service 2 years of school, like cinema, learning cinema. So they come with prior professional knowledge in the field. And it's very hectic, fun, very creative environment. And we were learning as we went along. In my time, as you can see here, the platforms are Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Snapchat was done in the American account. In the Israeli account, we did not do Snapchat. Today, they have opened a TikTok account. And in my time, they opened also Telegram, which was something that was new then. And now I think it's already gone down. Okay, IDF spokesperson. Our goal was basically to promote the IDF spokesperson's agenda in the digital realm. A misconception sometimes when I say that I was in the digital department, people are like, oh, you're dealing with cybersecurity and you're doing high tech, so it has nothing to do with that. This is only anything online, like the IDF website. In my time, we started the website. We built the website from scratch. So the IDF website that you see today, I was part of the team of the people who created all the content and wrote the content and really went to like the meetings with a company who who built the website, and we were like going to meetings with this company. And so basically the IDF website and various social media platforms, that's the digital realm. Cybersecurity and everything that has to do with that, there's a completely separate core that deals with that in the IDF. So I just wanted to like get you kind of to feel my everyday. So this is what like a typical week would look like in my service. So it was a daily service, meaning that I didn't sleep at the base. I slept at home. I would wake up in the morning and go to the base. Our base was in Tel Aviv. It was very, it was an office. It wasn't like the typical military base you would imagine. So I would typically go twice a week. I would go to the office, and that would be days of editing material, talking, having creative meetings, talking to people on what's on the agenda for the next month, creating content according to different events, according to what the strategy of the IDF spokesperson is in that time. And most of my week would be being in the field, meaning visiting various bases. Netta, could you continue yours? Because I have a call for a second. Wait 1 second. Netta, continue for a second, and I'll come back.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, feel free to ask a question in the meantime. That's a good idea.
Okay, well, first of all, it's delightful to meet your sister, Avia. Very nice, but I also noticed that two of the participants are named Lance and Naama. Could those be your parents?
So Naama is my sister in Chicago, and Lance and my mom, Esty, are in the other video. This is Peggy, who's in my community, and John and I have been to her house for Shabbat also for Friday night dinner. So I'm happy you get to see them. So
well, how many siblings do you have then?
We're 4 kids. The Yakir just drafted into the army yesterday, so he's not here.
Okay.
He's an actually combat unit compared to Avia and I. Yeah. So I'll just continue talking. I'll maybe a brief about my unit until Avia comes back. So what she said is correct. I think it's important to mention that most of the people in the spokespersons unit, sorry that I don't know how to leave her screen, but hopefully you guys can see me on the side. So the fact that we go home every day is a very important thing, because a lot of soldiers stay on the base for at least a week. My Nonna who's here as well, she was equivalent to social worker in the army, and I'm going to be doing a session with her as well in a few weeks. And she would stay in the army base for a whole week and come back on the weekend. So that's more typical to various army positions than this, like coming home every day. But at the same time, you can see she joined, Navy and Air Force. How do you say targil? Practice basically, and then in order to film and then be able to edit and ask people to speak afterwards and find those unique people. Okay.
I'm back.
Okay.
Should I continue? Sorry, everyone. It was an emergency. Okay. So where was I? So basically, most of the week, I would be going out to the field, visiting various IDF bases, going to Army bases, Navy bases, Air Force bases, and basically filming various content for articles that would go up, filming different drills, interviewing soldiers, and here's a picture of me under Wednesday and Thursday at a joint Navy and Air Force drill. That was one of the best experiences throughout my service. And it was like with intelligence, it was very, very exciting. And here I just brought some nice memories from my service. You could kind of like peek inside the experience. I'll start from left and I'll go down to right. So on the left, just a few friends. This is what the office looked like, very cramped, but very, it was like one big family. Under, you can see, I don't know if some of you recognize him. He's a famous Israeli pop singer who drafted into the IDF during my service. So we went and we interviewed him. I have the interview here if you guys want to check it out. Then another picture of the people in the office, as you can see, very cramped. And on the right, if some of you can recognize, filming commercial with singer Nadav Gedge. He represented Israel in the Eurovision in 2015. He was also a soldier, so we went to interview him and we did a commercial with him where he sang a song. Now, he wrote a song, and we went and we recorded a song, the song that they did. We did a whole music video, and it really is like a huge production company with tons of soldiers, 18-year-olds, just being creative, and it's a very, very warm and fun environment. It's very challenging and rewarding. And above, again, another example of filming with a famous stand-up comedian, Lea Lev in Israel. She wasn't a soldier, but we made a commercial with her, and she went a day in a base with soldiers, and she was like making jokes, and it was a very nice experience. So that's my service. Here is the website I was speaking about.
So Avia is now going to just show 2 examples of things she was involved with.
Yeah, and then I'm
And-
done talking.
No, you're fine.
So here's the English. Again, I was in the Israeli social media, so everything I did was in Hebrew. I didn't deal with everything in English that you see IDF in English. I didn't do. I was the Hebrew channels, but I'm showing for the sake of the talk the English one. So this is the English website that I told you that we were building when I was in my service. So just like sometimes you look at a website and you don't understand, like you don't notice everything that goes into building a website, but every single letter written here, it was someone actually sat and typed it. And you can understand the magnitude of information that people were sitting and doing. So it was a big and challenging project, and it took a long time, just gathering the information. Here's one of the things that is my kind of thing that I'm proud of for my service. It was Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year. And
Avia, one second, just make sure you shared your computer sound as well. If not, then we won't be able to hear it.
Let's do a test. You hear it?
Yeah, okay, good.
Right.
Good.
So there was a very viral soccer video that I think it was like the Mondial or something that went viral of like people. Yeah, the World Cup, that people were kicking a ball from different countries. And I thought it would be nice to do the same concept with an apple, but soldiers throwing an apple to one another from different bases all over Israel. So I went to bases from south to north of Israel, and got soldiers to take a video of various soldiers from different units, catching and throwing an apple, catching and throwing an apple. We combined it, and it was a cute idea. Didn't think anything would come of it. And it just went completely viral. In Israel, it was the 3rd most viral video of 2016, and it was I was 2 months in my service, and it was crazy, and it was a great experience. So I'll show a little bit of it.
You can show the whole thing.
That was something very nice and cute. I'll just show one more thing, and then
I'll just add that Avia, it's important to remember Avia did this for the Israeli media, and it was so successful that international media took it as well. So it became way more viral than she thought, just because it was, and you can see there's a collaboration, meaning that content she made for only Israeli media was brought to international media as well, and just the language was changed. So it was shared in all social media platforms to the different languages.
This is also another example for that. The picture I showed you from the pop singer, Stefan Lagar. So I was the one who interviewed him in this video. And it was very casual. I didn't think anything would come of it. And it was so successful in Israeli media that they took it and translated it into the English platforms as well. And this is just like a short kind of video article with him. I can share the link afterwards, and if anyone's interested can see it.
Just put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat. How do I do that?
Just copy and then share in the chat.
Yeah, sure. I'll figure it out.
Afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that the type of content is very meguvan.
Versatile.
Versatile, meaning that we also will do like operational videos. Like I wanted to give an example of this is Operation Good Neighbor. So we try and bring all the operations and all the operational work that the IDF does. But in addition to that, you'll see a lot of videos like human interest pieces of soldiers with special needs telling their story, famous singers or celebrities that have joined the IDF, for example. And it is very versatile. And that was basically my service. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. That's it. And I'll put it in the chat now.
Sorry, I was going to say, I realized that I put myself on mute, that feel free to continue asking questions in the chat. I saw some people ask questions already. Carol, did you want to ask a question? Okay.
Done.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you, parents, I'm impressed with their daughters.
Very impressed.
With the confidence of you girls, 4-star out of 4.
Thank you. So if you guys have any more specific questions about the service or what Avias showed, or more questions about how he did certain things or whatnot, so just feel free to continue asking in the chat. And I'll just share a little bit I'll give 2 examples of things that I did in my service as well. So as I said, I drafted.
I just saw the chat. Doesn't matter. Sorry.
It's okay. So I drafted right before Operation Protective Edge, and do you guys want to say something, my parents? Do you guys want to say something, or you guys are on mute right now? It looks like you want to say something. Okay. Well,
wait, is John asking that for?
John's asking that, but we'll do it at the end.
Okay, and also I need to answer Lawrence at the end.
Yes, we'll answer Lawrence at the end. Okay. So I drafted an Operation Protective Edge a few months before. So I actually began my service in the unit of the Foreign Press Desk in the middle of Operation Protective Edge, whereas other people were sent home on vacation for whatever. I started my job then, and I didn't do the type of work I did afterwards, but what I did was look through the international media, all the main websites, and basically mention where is the IDF mentioned? Is it on the front page? Is it just like really hid and you can only find really small articles, or basically from the Associated Press and just, forgot what it's called, syndicated to these different places, or is it, what are they saying also? What is the language they're using? So that's what I did during Operation Protective Edge, basically, and I did also answer phones and provide answers for questions to reporters. So and I guess the question is, how do I get those answers to various questions that people have? So there are IDF Spokespersons Unit representatives in all different brigades and specific units. So for example, the Nachal Brigade has a representative of the Spokespersons Unit who, if I have a question about what's going on in the Nachal Brigade, I will call her. There's also for the different commands. There's North Command, Southern Command, Central Command. They have a few soldiers who are there as well who will be able to answer questions. There's in the Air Force, there's in the Navy. There's specific soldiers from the IDF Spokespersons Unit who are there, and they also want their people from their unit to speak. So they're the ones who are trying to push, majors and briefings and the different drills for reporters to come to. And they're also the people who I will turn to as they're presenting the media if they want something specific or they want to speak to someone specific. So that's just important to explain. So if I have a question about what's going on in the Gaza border, I would probably refer to the Southern Command and ask my question. They will get the answers from the field itself because they're based there. So that's just important to understand that, yes, I deal with the media, but there's people from the IDF spokesperson who are actually on the ground and are with these different commanders and have a really personal relationship. So you have really a wide variety of people in the spokesperson's unit itself. So I started my position like that. I basically either answered questions and sent out those questions to the different IDF Spokespersons Unit commands, or I basically prepared a short briefing or short explanation about what's being seen in the media. And that document would be sent every few hours, supposedly to the chief of staff, but definitely to people high up, because that's how they wanted to know, what is the international media saying about Operation Protective Edge? What is going on? And that was important information that I was able to provide, in my first few days of joining the unit. So afterwards, when we went back to a normal routine, the job basically comprised of three things. One is answering questions. So if people would ask, I heard there was an attack in Hebron yesterday. I heard there was an attack in Hebron 2 days ago, because if it was after 24 hours, the operational desk would have to pass it to us. So I heard there was an attack on Hebron 2 days ago, and this woman got hurt, and the IDF soldiers weren't acting according to conduct. What is your response? So I would reach out to the relevant people, get a response, and then translate it and approve it internally in the unit as well to take out to the press. So when you see in various articles, IDF says it's someone like me from the IDF Spokespersons Unit who approved it with someone, and we send it out to the reporters. So that's one. And then 2 and 3 is basically articles. So either reporters come to us and say that they want to do an article about this or that, they want to interview this or that, or that we as a unit want to initiate different things and reach out to reporters, offering them different ideas. So I'll check, first of all, what is new around the IDF. So around generally in various different units, north, south, new technology and new, Air Force simulators and whatever, and then initiate that to reporters. So I'm just going to share one example of something that a reporter. I'm basically sharing one of my favorite article, and two, the article that I'm most proud of that I had a part in, but you don't actually see me, but it was the work behind the scenes, basically. So first of all, I'll explain the article that I'm most proud of, and then I'll share my favorite article. So the article I'm most proud of was actually something that I initiated. When I started my service, there was a new CNN correspondent in Jerusalem. His name is Oren Lieberman. He's still in Jerusalem. So if you recognize his name reporting, so that's him. He came to Israel when I was in my service. And at the time we had an office in Jerusalem, and CNN was really one floor below us. So I did a meeting with him. I spoke to him. I also found out that going with him to a general briefing of intelligence so he could get just a hang or knowledge of what's generally going on in the IDF, I learned a little bit about him and his various travels and whatnot, but also that he builds private planes with his dad, something that they do, and he's a pilot also. So I knew that he was very interested in, aircrafts, Air Force, anything that's revolving around that. And I called the spokesperson's representative from the Air Force and said, listen, there's this CNN reporter. It's 2015. We haven't done anything since Operation Protective Edge. It's been about a year since. And I know that he likes this. Is there anything new that you can give me that would be interesting, fascinating, big enough for an article on CNN? And he told me that there's this new flight simulator that's a long-term flight simulator, so they can think whatever they want about it regarding long-term, meaning it's not Syria, Lebanon, it's probably Iran. But we can't say that, but he can assume that. And I have this lieutenant colonel who can speak to him as well, and he can come see it himself. He can also try it out himself. So I said, okay, that sounds great. I called Oren and told him about the idea. And a few days later, we had a date and we filmed. And the following day, it was put on CNN. So that's a big deal because often the IDF is not able to put things on CNN articles of our own. And as well, it takes a long time for things to come up and doesn't happen usually the day after. I will show you the result of that. I'll show you the article of that came out of that whole interaction. But just to be aware and think of the story behind the scenes, that this article had a whole plan behind it before it actually came to being. So I will share my screen. One moment. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So I'll only share a minute and a half. Okay.
400 miles an hour, the terrain of northern Israel screaming past 500 feet below. It's hard to believe this isn't the real thing, and that's exactly the point. This is the Israel Air Force's most advanced F-16 fighter jet simulator.
You don't feel like you're in simulator. You're doing the best to survive the mission and succeed in the mission, of course.
Lieutenant Colonel Harel is our pilot on this exercise. The Israel Air Force asked us not to use his full name for security reasons.
If you want to see a missile that is launched on you and take a maneuver to take him off, you can do it only in the sim or in a combat situation, of course.
So now we're in northern Israel in the area known as the Sea of Galilee, which is right in front of us. You can see it in incredible detail. And then if you look left, if you look essentially north, you can see the Hermon, the highest mountain in Israel, and that's getting towards the Golan Heights, the northern border of Israel, the border with Syria, the border with Lebanon. We hear a lot of the threats surrounding Israel. Do you practice attacking Iran? Do you practice attacking ISIS?
We are practicing on the main goal of the IAF, what you need to be practicing and what we pilot. We want them to know how to deal with, and we prefer them to deal it in the simulator for the first time and not in the real combat arena.
As Israel's pilots hone their skills in the air, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stressed that all options are on the table when it comes to a nuclear Iran.
Okay. So related to what was happening at the time in 2015, it's a while ago, but just to be aware of what thought is put into it. I wanted to say that I was present when that article was being filmed, meaning an IDF spokesperson's representative has to be in every base a reporter goes to, or for every briefing a reporter goes to. And I remember that moment when he asked about Iran. I was like, because if this is something that's not okay, like, I have to intervene and jump in and interject and say, we're gonna stop it here or whatever, just to make sure that any security issues are not discussed. And we're told in advance, with the strategy and the messages beforehand, what are subjects we need to be aware of as well. So that was a big success story. And from then on, there were two other articles I did with CNN. One was about with the Hamas tunnel that same year, and also about the ISIS threat in the Gaza border, which I'm happy to share. Anybody's interested, anybody who's from B'nai has my email, so I'm happy to share those as well if you're interested, if you want to see more examples of the type of work. And the article that I'm most proud of, or my favorite article basically, is actually one that was a request. My favorite reporter, because we have a relationship with a reporter, is Mitch Ginsburg, who's not a reporter anymore, but he was for Times of Israel. I just had a very good relationship with him. And when he was leaving, we actually went to his office and gave him a mug of our favorite reporter, because he just was really nice. He would publish about how most of the things he wanted and do a lot of human interest pieces and a lot of pieces that we wanted to produce. So he was our favorite because of that, because he was most compliant to what we wanted, basically. So he came to a request to me, and he said that he wants to do an article about the Nativ course. I know the conservative movement, Nativ is something else, but the Nativ in the IDF is the conversion course. So I'll explain that the conversion course it's not originally a conversion course for everyone. The first part of Nativ is basically for people who did not grow up in Israel, and most often are from a Soviet Union background, and they're from the former Soviet Union, and don't know much about Judaism, don't know much about Israel's history, and have an opportunity to learn about that through the army. So that's part one of the Nativ course. And part two of the Nativ course is conversion. You have conversion part one, conversion part two. And once you start the conversion, you're supposed to go through both parts. But to just be aware that the first part is about just learning generally about Israel society. The second part is the actual conversion. So I have a friend, for example, who's now a shlicha in New York, and she's been Jewish her whole life, but she wanted the opportunity to learn more in depth about Judaism and Israel's history because she never had that before. But she was Jewish, so she did not have to do the second part. She was not interested in doing the second part. So that's important to explain. So he wanted to do the Nativ course and find people who were going to do the whole thing. and going through the conversion as well. So I reached out to someone from the Education Corps, because the Nativ is under the Education Corps, and she connected us to 3 individuals who started the course and were from different backgrounds. One who had, and I joined the first interview basically, and it took over a year to do the whole article just because we were following these people from day one up and through the courses as well. So one person had, a cross around his neck. He was very Christian and felt he was Christian. One person just felt Israeli and Jewish and didn't even know he wasn't Jewish until he got the invitation to come to Nativ basically. And the third was a woman. I know, really horrible, but it happens sometimes as well, especially when parents don't communicate about the situation to their kids. And the third was a woman who said that she wanted to be recognized as Jewish in the state of Israel, not to have problems with that. So she knew that she wasn't Jewish and wanted to go through the conversion. So Mitch basically followed these 3 soldiers, and I helped him. And the soldier who didn't know that he was Jewish and started the process was very iffy in the beginning about if he wanted to do this or not. And his name is Alex, and he ended up starting the conversion process. But by the time he finished, he was out of the army already. So it didn't have to go through me. I told Mitch, here, take Alex's number and go. And he ended up going to his Bet Din, so the rabbinical council he finished his conversion in. And he was the only person who saw him when he finished. He didn't have any other family members who came to see him. They're either working or whatnot. So Mitch was the only person who was there when he finished. And he interviewed him, and he called me right afterwards and told me this story that Alex was explaining how excited he was to be finishing and to be officially Jewish. And he took out a necklace that he took a necklace that was the Star of David. And he said, "This is my grandfather's necklace. I never put it on because I wasn't Jewish. And today I put it on for the first time because now I'm Jewish." And when I heard that, and now I have tears in my eyes as well. When I heard that, I said, this is why I did this article with you, because it was just so moving to do so many different meetings and articles. And these are talking about people who are not high ranked. They're 18, 19, 20, who are just going through this process in the army. But when it came out before Shavuot, in the following year, basically toward the end of my service, I was very, very proud of that article because it was really a big deal and a lot of work put into it, and just a real human interest story that was really moving. So I'll just show 1 second the article. I have it here. I have to reload it now. Okay. Now I'll share the screen just to show it, and I'll put the links as well in the chat. So this is it, as you see, 24th of May, 2015. So it was in the middle of my service, not the end. Also, the fun thing is that I took this picture. So my name is here, Netta Asner, IDF Spokespersons Unit, if you can see. So this is Alex on the right. This is Katya. And I do not, and then, I forgot his name. It says over here, Igor Havkin. So there's another picture I think I took here as well. Sorry about that. So then it goes all about Nativ and generally, and then he speaks about each person specifically. And it's a very long article about the conversion process. So I won't read it all with you right now, but just to share again, like being behind the scenes and creating this content for people to see afterwards. So this, oops, 1 second, here. So this is the article. So I just sent in the chat the Times of Israel article, and I'll send the CNN one as well. But here, I see that people start asking questions. So Avia, you want to answer first what you've been what are you doing now, basically? Yeah.
So I got out of the Army in 2018, 2 years ago. Immediately when I got out, I started working as the digital manager for the Jerusalem Press Club. And I worked for a short while at the Times of Israel, helping them set up an Israeli social media. And then I started university this year. Now I'm in second semester. I'm studying business and art history. And I went back to the Jerusalem Press Club, and I'm currently a digital manager, and I design content. So I also am a video editor and graphic designer.
She's very talented. And she's also, did you mention you're doing your first degree now as well?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so the next question is from John. So what was the most difficult thing about your work? Do you want to start with that as well, or?
I would say that the most difficult was just, I guess, bureaucracy, like getting different permissions to film this soldier, and you have to get through his commander and then the higher commander, and then like it goes through so many, just getting permissions to do the smallest things that you would think it's so easy. The soldier is standing in front of you, why can't I just film him? You can't. You have to go through, it can take a week to get a permission, and you have to go back to that base to just film that soldier who has no problem for you to film him, and it just sometimes seems ridiculous. So dealing with that type of like kind of annoying bureaucracy, I guess that was something that was extremely difficult and frustrating, but you got to deal with it. So
I guess that for me, difficulty was also that's a huge part of the work that people don't even mention, because we're all proud of the results at the end, was the fact that I have these personal connections with reporters. I really like them on a personal level, and then they come out with articles that make me infuriated. That I go through the same briefings with them, I hear the same information. It was so good, and yet they put, one little thing, one little quote in it, or they completely distort quotes, or they only listen to one quote, not this other quote that was really amazing. So that was definitely a challenge for me. And the hope of creating a positive article like the one that was with CNN, which was, showing the IDF in all its glory, truly, is something that I would hope to get to, but wasn't always the result. So I guess that for me was a difficulty during my service. So
how did you get your security clearance?
Yeah.
For your...
Avia.
I don't know.
Okay. So once we get into the unit, before we actually get into the Army, it's important to mention that our security clearance is considered low, because although we do hear additional information about security stuff, especially when we bring out to reporters, everything that we're sending out is approved for the public. So most of the things that we do is not like most military services that they deal with really, security information and intelligence that nobody else knows besides them. Most of the information we're dealing with is the information anyways to go to the public in some way. So therefore, even if we don't say all of the information, we say some of it, our security clearance is not super high. And it's important to mention that. So we do have a security clearance after we get into the unit, but it's pretty much, I think, the second before the lowest one, basically.
But the higher ranks in the unit have a high security clearance, especially the IDF spokesperson himself.
Yeah.
He's exposed to very
It's not old.
What?
No. Sure.
Anyways, he would have a high security clearance.
Yeah. And I'll also mention people who are involved in operational stuff. They also they all have a higher security clearance as well, because they're involved in information about soldiers being killed and injuries and etc. that are not always brought to the public immediately. So that's important to mention as well. Okay, how did you both deal with anti-Israel bias in international media? Okay, so that's more a question for me. To be honest, it's very hard to judge ourselves regarding, what can we do better in order to prevent the bias. So at the end of the day, it's important to remember that as much as we have a connection with these specific reporters, we have a connection, they have editors we don't have necessarily connections with. And often if they even write, something positive or whatnot, their editor will change what they wrote. So a main central way to change that is to have those personal connections. And, at the end of the day, I was able to produce, 3 articles that I know of that were relatively positive about the IDF, that said good things about what the IDF is doing or about their actions. Those personal connections and providing high quality content for the reporters is a way to somewhat prevent the bias. But at the same time, you have to remember that there's reporters reporting from Gaza and the West Bank, and I don't have control over, right? So it's a very difficult challenge, and the IDF Spokespersons Unit does the best to balance things out and provide more information, provide briefings all the time that are also off the record, but just so the reporter has knowledge about stuff. It's a constant challenge that we're always trying to face, and the fact that the reporters change all the time is also a challenge. So that's what I would say about that.
I can add that in the social media realm, there's a lot of incitement in comments, and we had a very strict policy regarding how to deal with that we were not ashamed to delete comments that called to kill IDF soldiers or anything like that. We had like a 0 tolerance policy for that, whereas other social media platforms would say that it's hurting freedom of speech. But that was just our policy. So that's how we would deal with anti-Israel, anti-Semitism. I would enjoy deleting the comments. So.
Abba's clapping hands for you. So Wendy asked me privately, but I think she meant it for everyone. But she said, what do you think of what's going on in the American media? I think it relates to the the answer I was saying beforehand, that, yes, I think that American media has certain perspectives because they have a wide variety of opinions. They have reporters, I think we would call them stringers, people who are from, Gaza or the West Bank itself, that they take pictures and are involved, and, and we don't have any control or involvement with them. So with all due respect that we do all this work and everything, there's a limit in how much we can influence the American media, and other things influence the American media, if that makes sense. So those are all the questions that I saw. If anybody has any other questions, we'd be happy to answer. And thank you for all your kind words and compliments.
Hopefully this was somewhat interesting.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm a new B'nai member, so if this is wrong, if this is the wrong kind of thing, just tell me. But we as a family, as an extended family, have given to Years to Lone Soldier Foundation. The big one. There are a few, but the big one. We also give to Friends of the IDF. We've given, I think, at least once. It's a one-person thing, Ethics in the Field. Do you have any tzedakah recommendations for organizations to give to that support the IDF, in addition to the 3 I mentioned?
So if you're saying the Lone Soldier Center, which is the Michael Levine.
Yes, the Michael Levine one.
So they do great work, and they really help a lot of lone soldiers. I can also tell you FIDF, there are whole bases that I know of that have been improved and look nice because of FIDF. Yes. that they also give they give funds, and they provide people with money for people who were
those are the 3 we do already.
Okay.
I was asking if you would add anything, add any other organization to support the IDF.
So the thing is that the IDF can't, it's important to mention that because the IDF is a military body, it's more difficult to give contributions to the IDF in various ways. So the IDF doesn't have, for example, like a GoFundMe page or, donation part of their website. But so I don't know specifically other organizations. I know that there are also other lone soldier, there are other organizations to help soldiers who are in need. But if other people have other organizations maybe that they know, then they're welcome to share. But that's what I know of, at least. Are there any other questions?
Okay.
So I just want to share that I'm part of this whole Shlichim online initiative. And Rotem, if you guys see Rotem Ur, she's a Shlicha in Sharei Torah, and she is in charge of this whole Life Online project. If anybody's seen on Facebook that I've shared, or things that she's tagged me in, and we're trying to create content that people are interested in. So in the chat, there is a short Google form to fill out that we would love if you guys could take 2 minutes to fill out and say what you guys are interested in, so we know what content to create and what is interesting to you, rather than just thinking of things that we're good at. And thank you so much for the comments and feedback. And I'll just note that next week, exactly the same time, we're going to have 2 combat soldiers that will be joining us. I won't be talking next time. I'll be just introducing them. One is Janine Melo, who's from Brazil, and she was in the co-ed unit of Caracal. And Itamar, who's a friend of mine, he started his position in the Air Force as a pilot, and then he moved to be in the artillery, if I'm not mistaken. That's how you say it, right? With tanks? Okay, good. All right, he moved to be commander in artillery. So I thought that both those things, and also hearing from a woman who is in combat, would be interesting. So that's exactly next week at the same time at 1 p.m. So feel free to join us then, and I'll be sharing more about it and about them. And also feel free to share with your friends and people from wherever about this as well. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great evening in Israel, and have a good afternoon to everyone here.
Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Thank you, Avia.
Thanks, everyone. Netta, could you send me a recording?
I will send the recording.
Thanks.
Okay.
Can you stay on?
Yeah.
Is Abba still there?
1 second. So Nama, just mute yourself first.
Nama, wait a second.
Yes, Nama, Abba's still here. Hello, John.
Hi.
Hi, John.
I'm at work. This is how I dress.
Hi, Jason.
He's not Jason.
Hey, you shaved.
Not on purpose.
You look like a little boy.
Accidentally. No, if you look closely, there's hair.
That's what happens to Akir when he tries to shave.
Just wait. I'm gonna have to give myself
Okay,
a
I'm gonna
haircut.
stop.